Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Caleb Taskey, and believe it or not, I've got another great guest for you this evening. I do want to just do the housekeeping, man. Great interview with Lucas Mason from Orem Labs out in Colorado. Unfortunately, they had to shut their doors, but I thought that was a fantastic chat with Luke. Bummer to hear about that. Drew Greco, who's Green Star Consulting out in Las Vegas, I think in Nevada. A lot of these aren't getting the views that I wish they would, but boy, these have been phenomenal conversations. Josh Sweeter at Infinite Chemical Analysis Labs. They have labs in California and Michigan. Lester Black from SF Gate, who I was just talking to a minute ago. John Averill from the Roaring 420s Lounge in New York. And of course, Jamie Toff, Data Witch. We've been going over some of her findings in the lab world. Also coming up, my next interview, I've got Keith Stroop, who is the founder of Normal, on May 21st at, let's see what time that's at noon on May 21st. I got Keith coming on. I'm super excited to have Keith on. And then on the 23rd, I got Anthony Minetti, who's a pharmacist who also has a weed company in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. Then Sunday the 26th, I got Joseph Ortiz coming on. And then on the 28th, I got Sean Mosley from Arden's Gardens. I'm super excited to have Sean on. We've been trying to set that one up for a year now. So that'd be cool. Sean lives right up the road from me. And my guest today was a referral to me from another guest that I've had on the show, Larissa Bolivar. Said, hey, maybe you should talk to this guy. And so I got this guy joining us today. He has a background in web development. He was a cannabis farmer and an activist out in Colorado. And I'm super excited to hear his story. Please welcome to the show, Corey Donahue. Corey, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Caleb. I'm glad you're here, and it'll be interesting. I'll have to listen to your Keith Stroop show. I asked him a question once why the Normal was backing the cannabis DUI here in Colorado when we were fighting against that in 2011. And it was basically the answer was, well, we have to have some sort of protection, and some protection is better than none. So
I'm going to make a note of that right now.
Yeah,
Cannabis DUI is something that I've been talking a lot about that nobody seems to give a shit about, but I certainly do. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was that back in the day, like it was one of the first things here in Colorado. They're like, here's all this stuff for the legalization, and we'll also put in a cannabis DUI just to make people feel safe. And
can you save that for a second, Corey? Let's come back to that. But before we do anything serious, would you mind giving us a 5-minute life story, please?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I grew up here in Colorado and Boulder, north suburbs of Denver. Always, was a cannabis user from high school, junior high ish when we got into it. Then went to college, Hawaii, back here, CSU. I graduated, then kind of moved down to South America. Lived there for a while, kind of got to know them, moved back up, went to grad school in Australia, moved back to Colorado, moved to DC, did, some stuff, human rights activism, and worked for a few human NGOs out in DC, then came back to Colorado and started getting into kind of the cannabis activism. And this was right around Amendment 20 time. Got a job at one of the first medical dispensaries here in Colorado, One Brown Mouse up in Netherland, run by Kathleen Chipeye back in the day. And that was really cool. We, before all the regulations and under Amendment 20, we would, have people come in, hang out at the dispensary. We had a couch, you could play music, we had bands. It was a pretty fun time. Then got really heavy into the cannabis activism in Colorado. They're trying to pass the cannabis DUI, and I was dead set against that. And then the regulate marijuana like alcohol, which we'll talk about here in a sec, and why I put a petition, because that's according to the laws that was incorrect because they're not regulating it like alcohol. Then kind of moved down to South America again after about 2012. I took part in the Occupy protests, so got in a little trouble for that, but moved down to South America until the heat blew off, and the heat blew off. So then I came back home. While in South America, I was a cannabis advisor for Senator Pino Solanas in Argentina and Buenos Aires, and his political movement called Proyecto Sur. That's spelled with the Y, the Spanish spelling, and they do a lot of cannabis activism. They're still doing it down there, and they're doing a great job. If you ever check them out, there's a few. I'll try to put them up during our conversation. A few organizations down there fighting for cannabis justice in Argentina, because not everyone in the world has it as available as up here. Then moved back to Colorado, worked in the industry, managed to grow and the sales team out of grow here in Colorado, and saw how much money was going to the state and the cops, and remembered the days, because I was old enough where the people growing and selling the cannabis got the money and weren't paid like minimum wage workers at best. That was one of the things I saw that kind of got me out of the industry, or out of that part of the industry, was having to tell people that
You're breaking up a little bit, Corey.
stay here with no health care. That's one of the things that kind of got me kind of unhappier about what's going on, is telling the people that I had to manage that they should stay with us without health care,
Yeah, you were breaking
without
up there for a second, Corey. I just want to, if you break up too bad, I'll let you know, but that was just like a couple seconds, but carry on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So just telling people that, yeah, working cannabis while you're not getting health care and McDonald's is paying you better. Like, I had people say, hey, I leave work and see a sign for getting paid better. So it was kind of, doing that. And then now just talking about what happened, how it's set up. I do software development, so there's doing some of that on the cannabis side. I don't like how you have to go through different, setups, Weed Maps, Leafly, the other ones, to look for cannabis deals. So working on a system to streamline that and get people better cannabis from the store and at a cheaper price.
Hmm.
And then, just maintaining my own garden, which I'm very happy about.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about your master's in international law and relations, please?
Yeah, I went down to the University of New South Wales.
Oh, yep, I'm losing you, Corey. Yep, I can
Yep.
hear you now. Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry. I
That's
think
okay.
they're doing work. So yeah, I went down there. My academic advisor and whatnot was Anthony Billingsley, Professor Anthony Billingsley, and he was the Middle East section chief for the Australian Office of National Assessment. And this was during the second Bush term. So this was when we were hot and heavy in Iraq and Afghanistan. So we learned a lot about, what the top guy at the CIA in Australia would know as a professor. So got a lot of information about that. Worked at Amnesty International during the day, took my classes at night, and that really got me into kind of my view of the world of human rights law, and trying to right injustices, be they cannabis or war crimes. So that was nice. I wrote while at Amnesty International. I helped, and there's another gentleman that drafted Cannabis Amnesty International's 2007 the assessment on the Convention against Convention of Torture, and how Australia had violated their rights and obligations on the Convention against Torture by allowing two of their citizens to be held at Guantanamo Bay. So there's two Australian citizens in the War on Terror being held at Guantanamo Bay. They're both out now, but it's like, I think they're there for 13 years without charges. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, so those were things that kind of shaped me and shaped my view of the world. And from that, I saw that cannabis was the war on drugs, not just cannabis, but mostly cannabis, has been the longest war on the American people since its inception. It's put how many people in jail, how many people have been killed, how many families' lives have been ruined. But it's yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where I came from. It wasn't like, oh, we can create an industry, oh, we can do this. It's, oh, this is a wrong that must be righted. So that's kind of how I got into it, and stepped over the line a few times, but I felt it was for the right thing, and so here we are.
Well, and stepping over the line sort of seems like part of that cannabis culture, to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So I do want to get into the DUI stuff, but maybe um, you could just tell us, when you sort of started engaging in Colorado in these processes, and then we can tie that in to that work. Oh, lost you again for a second there. Come back, Corey. Yep, still lost you. Let's wait for Corey to come back. We're having some internet troubles here, but yeah, as soon as he's back, we're going to talk about legalization in Colorado. Hopefully, we don't lose him. I can riff if I have to, but that's going to be weird for all you guys. But I will riff. And Larissa, if you're listening to this, I want to thank you for putting me in touch with Corey. Yeah, he's just lost his connection here, so we're going to wait for Corey to get back in. If you guys didn't see my previous couple of interviews with Larissa, please check them out. I thought those were great interviews. And yeah, he's just texting me now. Internet dropped on my end. Yeah. So we're going to wait for Corey to get back in here. Larissa, I really want to thank you again. She really put me into a vein of great information here, regarding, especially with the Colorado stuff. And I wouldn't be talking to Corey today, if it wasn't for her. So, I really want to, thank Larissa. She's been killing it. She's also been subject to some fairly aggressive, like, personal attacks, which I can relate to because I've also dealt with some of that stuff, and it's not super fun. However, the things Larissa has been telling me, um, have all checked out. So, if you guys would like to see some of her work, or some of the stuff I did on the Ben Cohen piece was based off of information that Larissa gave me. So if you like any of my work, you got to check out Larissa. Yeah. And let's see if we get Corey back here. I got a fat joint here from someone you can't know about, but hopefully we get Corey back. I already had to reschedule this once, and that was kind of my fault. But if we can't get him back, I'd be happy to just talk to myself for the next 10 minutes. I do think this interview with Keith Stroup is going to be very interesting on the 21st. He's the founder of Normal. I've heard a lot of stories about Keith. I've never met the guy. However, Normal is clearly a powerful force here in cannabis advocacy in the United States. And, I don't care what your opinion is. I think Keith is kind of a fascinating character inside of those stories. And also, by the way, on the 30th, I double booked. I'm going to have to reschedule one of these, but I got Yasha Khan from MCR Labs. Yasha's been talking to me about a lot of the lab testing issues going on in the country. He's presented some data sets that definitely make my eyebrows go like that. And then AC Moon, one of those two I'm gonna have to reschedule because I fucked up and double booked. But yeah, I got some other good ones coming up in June too. My man Evan Carlson from NEK Broadband, who's one of my old friends. I've known Evan for probably 30 years, and he's now working to expand broadband access around the state of Vermont, which I really love that someone has taken on that project. He's been doing this for, I don't know, 11 or 12 years now, and it's been very slow going. But Evan's doing some great work, and I'm super curious to hear what he has to say about this. I'm gonna send Corey another invite here real quick. Let me just invite him back. Make sure he's got an invite. If he can't make it back, we'll reschedule this for another day. But boy, that'd be a bummer because we already did that, and I was really hoping to hear what Corey had to say today. These stories from Colorado have been just fascinating. Um, we were going to talk about metric. I've got a petition here that Corey wrote to the Supreme Court in Colorado. Petitioner Corey Donahue, respondent, State of Colorado, title setting board, real parties in interest, Mason Tavert and Brian Vicente, proponents. So, yeah, if we don't get Corey back in like 3 or 4 minutes, oh, here he is.
Sorry about that.
Hey, Corey.
Downstairs and we're outside.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool. So I riffed the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you had a nice looking joint in your hand, so I'm happy for you.
I do. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I was just asking you how you get involved in like the activism movement in Colorado, and then you got cut off. So maybe we could pick it up there. And here, let me put you back in the big box. That's where you belong.
Yeah. So came back from DC to take care of my mom. She was dying of cancer. And again, one of the beautiful things about cannabis was I told her, my whole family was like, no, she doesn't need to do Phoenix Tears. She doesn't need to do any of that. Do the chemo. But eventually I convinced her to take a few, I don't know, half gram maybes, and she felt good, the next day about it. And she cooked me my last supper when she was high as hell off of cannabis. And the last supper she ever cooked was that. So was when she was using cannabis. So I was really happy about that. Then I saw, like I said, I saw just how if you look at human rights violations, how much of our human rights have been violated through the war on drugs. And so I started, Kathleen Chippai and what was there? Kathleen Chippai she was the biggest activist at that time. She put a lot of money into cannabis legalization. Prior to that, she had a hemp food company, Holy Hemp Foods. The DEA shut her down. So she has been battling this forever, and I got hooked up with her. She also owned One Brown Mouse. So as we were working, we were saying, hey, let's go down there, go to the Capitol, try to push things in the right direction. So that's how I kind of got involved. And then once the cannabis DUI thing came about, I really was like, that's, 5 nanograms of THC, you're putting innocent people in prison for nothing, for something that's not a crime, something that you can't prove. Like I even talked to, and at the time, they've had a few more studies, but they've always been the same, 5 nanograms, 10 nanograms, it doesn't matter. You can't have a nanogram limit for cannabis in a driver. Yeah, please.
Do you know who came up with that number?
It was the cops. It's just and when we were in the sitting in the government, not the government, the Capitol, the government house. The government house. We were sitting in the Capitol. Repeatedly, they would say, "We need a bright line, a clear line, or bright line." It was in terms of those terminologies, just like alcohol. So with alcohol, yeah, there is a direct correlation, 0.08, in your bloodstream, but that's not the same with cannabis. So they're trying to regulate it like alcohol on that side. And then there was Laura Spicer. She was a abuse. She was recently. She was the vice president of the Boulder County Democrats after this, but she was a substance abuse therapist that was coming in and telling this was the horror story she told her. A cannabis driver almost hit her kid in a crosswalk while he was riding his bike across a crosswalk. Which, one, it's illegal to ride your bike across a crosswalk. 2, so your kid almost got hit by a car, so we should put people in jail.
So didn't get hit.
Didn't get hit. She works as a substance abuse specialist, so she's going to get paid if you got pulled over, got your blood drawn, and had to do those classes. And She was the vice president of the Boulder County Democrats. So it's not like it's just, it's not like you or me, some guy on the street going up there and saying, "Hey, this is bad." It's like, hey, the cops say it, the political system says it, and people who are willing to make a lot of money on cannabis, or who are going to make a lot of money on cannabis DUIs are saying it. So,
well, and let me throw this at you, Corey, because I've watched the advisory committee meetings here in Vermont, where the commissioner of Department of Health, Dr. Mark Levine, even admitted, and this is a direct quote, and I'll never forget this. He said, "There is no scientific consensus for what constitutes impairment from cannabis." Meanwhile, they're training all these cops to go to drug recognition expert trainings, and basically detect signs of impairment from something which the state has admitted there is no reliable sign for which to like detect those signs. Any thoughts on that?
the state doesn't need a reason to lock you up. They build those jails. They have to put people in the jails. Like that. It's the cops. 30% of your town's budget is probably spent on the cops. I know it's here, so it's if we actually had legalization where we weren't, putting these 5 nanograms of THC, paying for these drug experts, you'd see police budgets go down. But nowhere in the United States is that true. So it's just another way that they can contain it. And today they moved it to Schedule 3, so it's still a scheduled drug like steroids. It's still got all this. So what other regulations can they put on it? It's that slowing. I think we're in the same mindset about it. That slowing of this plant is a innocuous plant. Why are we treating it harsher than alcohol? Which kills thousands of people every year. There's even a book, that Mason Turvert wrote, and treat it like it's better than alcohol, but we're not treating it that way. So it's just, it's the state getting its money off the war on drugs. Like I said, it used to be people moving the cannabis, growing the cannabis, selling the cannabis, making the money. Now it's the state, the tax coffers, and the people doing it are working jobs that they don't have health care. So regulation and control.
Yeah, and your point about McDonald's was well taken. There's a McDonald's right over here that's hiring for more than some people are making in these, and that was part of the pitch. Was it's going to be create all these jobs, like good paying jobs, and then when you see how much people are actually making, it's like, I don't know if that's really good paying.
Yeah. I mean, it's a job, I guess, but you can't buy most places. You can't buy an eighth with 2 hours of work. So. Yeah, but it's there's people, you can still grow it yourself. That's not changed. I'll turn this around. I have my, not all cannabis, but I got my nice little garden started there. So happy about that. And with the skills I have learned in commercial cultivation, I'm just using them in my own backyard plot. So
and to your point that you made earlier, this has been described as legalization. However, they haven't done away with the civil asset forfeiture piece of this. They're making new DUI laws to, continue to, the way I'd put it is harass motorists, maybe for no reason. But yeah, I'm curious, and maybe that ties into this petition that you filed here. But to me, this feels more like Prohibition 2.0 with a little twist or something. And that's just my opinion, guys, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I have my father-in-law just came from Alabama, so compared to places like Alabama, Mississippi, and they are changing, it's better. Like, I haven't, people are still getting arrested, people are still getting all this. I don't think it's prohibition. I think it's just another way to slow it down. Like, if we had our way and if we could have actually written a legalization initiative, and I wrote one, and it was, it was crazy. It was never going to pass because it was a very much, we get all the cannabis, the cops put their hands on you, the cops get a felony. But that was not going to pass. But I got to debate Mason about that and smoke a joint on stage during a debate. That was fun. But, it's just like,
will you slow down for a second and tell us how that went?
Oh, I got yelled at because it was, this was back 2010, 2009, 10, 11, somewhere in there. And so it wasn't as open now. And we were debating, and I was saying you can have 1 ounce of cannabis, but you can't smoke in public. So I can't take out this joint. And I was on stage, and I had uh, who was it that gave me the joint? I can't remember who. Reverend, what was his name? He does a lot of cannabis work here. I'll try to think of it and send it to you. And he just handed me a joint. And I lit up on stage, and the people are mad because you can't smoke weed in a bar. We were in a bar. You can't smoke weed. So I had my beer and I smoked a joint. Like, can't do that. I'm like, well, yeah, no, I can't do that when we legalize. So what's really happening here? But yeah, I proposed something different. There's a few other people proposing something different. There's one of the proposals was just do away with the laws. We'll just say these laws are no longer on our books. Because what it was, Colorado, it's in our constitution. A lot of places, some other places, I think Michigan might have it in their constitution. Some places do. We're the first ones having our constitution, and so I was going with, okay, then why don't we trigger a Amendment 14 to the Supreme Court? When states and the federal government have a disagreement, it automatically goes to the Supreme Court. So I was saying we should have written our cannabis laws, and this was a lot of what a lot of the activists at the time were saying, was not to take these baby steps because, 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, but to force the government's hand on cannabis by saying this law in our Constitution is a constitutional right. Not an interstate common, is a constitutional right. So we want to take it to the Supreme Court and actually challenge them. And written correctly, I felt confident that could happen, because if we remember way back in 68 with the Marijuana Tax Act and Dr. Timothy Leary suing the federal government over the Marijuana Tax Act, he won. And we had a few years, you could buy jars of LSD. I would have been happy with that, but I'm not a soccer mom, and that's what actually got us our Controlled Substances Act. So I was of the line that we challenge them, like Dr. Timothy Leary did, and we win. Other people are like, no, we just baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, and we've been baby stepping for 12 years now. And people are still in jail. People are still being arrested. Police are still arresting people for cannabis. And now they can not even have to arrest you for a crime. You just didn't pay your taxes, or it's a tax violation, which makes it much easier for them to, take your stuff. So
Coming back to my point about the civil asset forfeiture.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, and it's easier to prove you didn't pay your taxes. Like, okay, that's how they get everybody. That's how they got Martha Stewart, but she kept her mouth shut.
That's how they got Al Capone, isn't it?
Yeah, they got Al Capone. That's how they get everybody. It's taxes.
Okay. Will you tell us a little bit about the 420 rally, please?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that was done. Ken Gorman started that, and I was never one of, like, I was there like 2-3 years after Ken, and he started that, and it went really well. Ken was a wild man, passing out joints at the Capitol. Like, he believed in cannabis freedom, and he should have. And the cops killed him for it. So we continued that. Miguel Lopez, Larissa, I was a part of that. I got to help, set that up. And what it was, so it was a rally up until after A64. I think it was 2012. So you have to go down. It's public space at the park. Everybody goes down. If you want to get married at a public space in the park, you go down, you sign up on November 9th, I think it is. I can't remember the exact date, but sometime October, November, December. You sign up at City County building, you get your permit, you get to use the park. With the 420 rally, is always set up as a rally. We're using it's our First Amendment right to come here, use cannabis, and protest these crimes, these cannabis laws. And so we did that until it got legalized. And then when it got legalized, the day we're supposed to do that, everyone's standing in line. But is it jars that did? I don't want to. Uh, I can find that real quick. But one of the companies, one of the cannabis companies that just opened up, was escorted in front of a line, and instead of having uh, a rally like a protest is a rally permit, which we are protected under our First Amendment rights, they changed it to a festival permit, which allowed the city and the county to then even more strictly regulate the cannabis consumption at the 420 rally. But they got to sell beer under the permit, uh, under the festival permit. So, you know, that was good, I guess. And but that was, it was great. It always had a lot of people there, and that's the Denver one. CU also had a great one. I'm from Boulder, and so they always had it at Fair and Field. But around the same time, they're trying to crack down here in Colorado, so they sprayed fish fertilizer on the field for like 4 years in a row to prevent it from happening, and now it hasn't happened. And God, a long time up here, and it's kind of now become commercial and become a way to sell you Bud Light. But then with permits, rallies, I also started, I guess, the first 420 rally in Argentina in Buenos Aires. It wasn't that big. Sorry, moving around now. It wasn't that big because they don't really do a 420 rally down in Argentina. They do the Global Marijuana March, which happens May 3rd and 4th, the weekend, the first weekend of May. And so 420 being so close, we didn't double book it. So we had a small 420 rally. And then I helped Pino Solanas and Proyecto Sur put on the Global Marijuana March. And they do that every year through Buenos Aires. We get about, I think, between 150,000. One year we had 400,000 people marching through the streets of Buenos Aires. And it's really a surreal sight. Everybody's smoking. No one's bothering you, but we're marching downtown Buenos Aires. We're marching, marching up. What did we march? Because we marched from the Pink House up to Congress, and we marched up Cordoba Avenue, I think, which is like a main thoroughfare. Think Broadway, Fifth Avenue, something like that, New York. And always cars, always sound. But when we were marching through, it was just people chanting, and it got really quiet in the city, and it got real quiet and smoky. And they do it. It's I think it's like New York. I think if it ever gets regulated by the state down there, I think it'll be exactly like New York, where people will just be selling it out of bodegas and won't care because you can't. It's hard to put regulations on people growing plants. And that's how it was in Argentina. And it was actually interesting because Argentina never had a hippie revolution. Like after their military dictatorship ended in the mid 80s, 86 or 87, I think. But after their military dictatorship ended, they had basically a neoliberal that came into Argentina and flooded the streets with cocaine. Paraguay is right, next to them. So that's how the CIA, gets the drugs to Europe, Paraguay, Argentina, Spain, versus up here it's Colombia, Mexico, United States. So just two different routes for drug trafficking. But they never had a real hippie revolution. So when I was down there, I could go to parties and bring the joints or the cannabis I grew, share it with a few people, and just a few joints. And the whole night, if I wanted, I could have pretty much free cocaine because that was just the discrepancy. They never had it. That their drug of choice down in Buenos Aires was cocaine because it's so easy to get and so cheap. But good flour wasn't like that. Per gram, it costs more to buy good flour in Buenos, or it did. I don't know now. It did cost more to buy good flour than it would a gram of cocaine. So that was kind of an interesting thing for me to see. And while I was down there, at the same time, Uruguay basically legalized the same way Colorado legalized, and so it was pretty funny seeing boats going over to Uruguay to bring stuff over to because they're across the Rio de la Plata, and they just cross the way, go a boat, get it for the day, come back, and that's how. So it was legalized next door to a city of like 28-30 million people. So I'd like to go back and see how it is now. Talk to my friends when I'm down there, and see. It's just, interesting to watch different countries' drug policies. And then, I smuggled hash up and down when I was in Argentina, Mexico. I smuggled like 100 grams just for personal use of hash all the way down to Argentina. And the only time I ever felt kind of scared, like I was going to get arrested, was in Bolivia. But it was malleable, so it was in my wallet and on my butt. And they put their hand, they pat me down, but then I realized they're not looking for some gringo going south with a bit of hash. They're looking for some gringo going north with a bunch of cocaine. So that was that was my brush with the law down there. But it's no one cares. And I one time in Argentina, we went out with my friends, had dinner, got out of the restaurant, was walking down the street, saw a really attractive woman. As I was pulling out a joint, lit up, looked at her, and then as I lit it up, I was staring dead in the face of a cop. And he's like, so I played the dumb gringo, pretended I didn't know Spanish, and he's telling my friend, explain to your friend what's good and what's bad, and smoking pot in front of a cop's bad. And then he walked away. Another time, I got pulled over with my Cuban buddy, and we were coming back from a salsa dance, and I got caught with maybe an ounce and $2,000. I was actually moving into a new apartment, and they pulled it out, pulled everything out. I was like, oh my god! And this could be white privilege. This could be whatever. But nothing happened. They're like, I told them, like, this is for my apartment. I'm renting an apartment. I'm gonna go smoke pot in my apartment. And they're like, okay, get out of here. We don't want to do the paperwork. So it's just seeing all this and seeing what it is in other countries versus what it is here, and it provided me with a unique perspective that I carry on.
Word up. And I want to transition here, Corey, and everybody listening. We got 5 people listening. I'm here with Corey.
Right.
And the next thing we're gonna do is look over this petition here because
okay.
Yeah.
So if we go up top, I think it's just a repetitive. I think I had to make.
So this is a Supreme Court petition from Corey Donahue. Respondent is the State of Colorado Title Setting Board, Secretary of State, and their parties in interest are Mason Tavert and Brian Vicente. And I have not had time to read all this, Corey, but I was hoping maybe you would give us a summary of it.
Yeah. Basically on page 2, it's they're Brian and Mason proposed initiative 2011-2012.
Pull that back up. We can do that, right?
Yeah. It's just saying, it says regulation of marijuana. On June 20, I filed this motion saying the title is misleading and it contains an impermissible catchphrase. I wanted them to rehear it because striking the term similar to alcohol, because they never said, it's not similar to alcohol. They said, oh, we're going to regulate it, and never really, if it's similar to alcohol, I can buy as much alcohol as I want. I'm not. And then arguing the title was confusing as it was not similar to alcohol, and the initiative proposed to regulate marijuana in a manner similar to medical marijuana with enforcement through the Department of Revenue. The board did strike the term similar to alcohol. It did not include any regulatory authority in the title, which would lead to confusion by the people of Colorado regarding who is in charge of regulations. As the language in this proposed amendment would create a regulatory scheme in the state of Colorado unknown to the citizenry and ripe for confusion by the people of Colorado, I respectfully request the court submit this ballot back to the title board. So I'm asking them to send it back. And it wasn't like saying they can't do it, they shouldn't do it. It was saying, just don't lie to us and say you're regulating it like medical marijuana with the Department of Revenue. And they're not even.
Will you walk us through your objections, Corey?
Yeah. So I was objecting to division.
And I could certainly tell you a number of objections I've had in Vermont. THC caps.
Yeah.
To be the first and foremost. Yeah.
Yeah. I submit to the opinion of the court that the true intent of the proponents of this initiative is marijuana sentencing reform for more efficient use of law enforcement resources. So that's what I was saying. They're doing sentencing reform and they're doing these things. And like it says on the very top of Amendment 64 here in Colorado, the very first thing it says is for the more efficient use of law enforcement resources.
Really?
Yeah. So if we get, I can read you 64. Okay.
And this is the legalization legislation.
Yes.
And the first thing is about more efficient use of law enforcement.
Yeah. Here you go. Okay. Have to do it. City of Fort Collins for some reason is the first one that pops up. So the ballot title: Shall there be amendment to Constitution or Colorado Constitution concerning marijuana and connection therein, providing for the regulation. So this is like the title of it. It's just saying they're going to tax it. But if you go down, text of the measure: be enacted by the people of the state of Colorado. Article what? That's Article
You
18.
should be able to share your screen if you want to.
Oh, sweet.
I think you should be. Yeah, if you want to share that and you're able to, please pop it up.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Presents. Share screen. Share screen. Amendment 64. Share. Okay, so here we are. We're good?
Here, bang.
Okay, so here's the ballot title. This is kind of what they're saying. Like, this is what's going to prohibit such facilities. That's just, but the actual language, so section 16, this is what we're actually enacting. Number 1, purpose and finding. A, in the interest of the efficient use of law enforcement resources, enhancing the revenue for public purposes and individual freedom. So at least we're in there. People of the state of Colorado find and declare that use of marijuana should be for persons 21 age or older and taxed in a manner similar to alcohol. That's not even true now because it's taxed way more than alcohol.
Isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Double in Vermont.
Yeah. And then there's one that I really, driving under influence shall remain illegal. So they put that in there, which, is that's
which is based on junk science and police lobbying.
Yeah. Cannabis plant. Then there's some weird terminology saying that it can only be used by let's see if I can find it, businessman. Legitimate tax-paying business people and not criminal actors can conduct the sale. It's not that one. Here we go. Unreasonably impractical means that measure necessary to comply with the regulations requires such a high investment of risk, money, time, and any other resource or asset that the operation of a marijuana establishment is not worthy of being carried out in practice by a reasonably prudent business person. Like, this is in a constitution. What the hell does that mean? And who are they excluding in here? That's some things. Like I said, we're talking about something that was 12 years old and it got in. This is what we're operating on, and this is what most states are. I would suggest our 5 listeners, if they're not in just
6.
Colorado. 6, all right.
Where can people find Corey? Where can people find that document if they would like to see it?
fcgov.com MMJ PDF Amendment 24.pdf. It's right up here, and that's the Fort Collins government. You can also, just look up Amendment 64 Colorado and get the actual text of the measure, which is here. And I suggest in your own states, I know a lot of them followed this wording at the top. Some of them have taken it out now, but just check it out, and because that's what it says. The first thing in there is purpose and finding is for the cops and for the tax people. So kind of keeps us where we're at, and it's, I think, just a way to slow it down and not ever get us to where it's actual, I treat it like tomatoes because it's no more harmful than tomatoes. I'd like to see that, but we can't. And so this was a lot of the, this was just a bunch of local activists trying to challenge what a bunch of big money people wanted to put together to make sure cannabis was enacted. And I think it's funny now that a lot of people are like, oh, Monsanto is going to start growing cannabis crops, and Monsanto's going to do this. When it's actually pretty smart of Monsanto. They just own all the other stuff. They bought what was it? What's that company that does all the cannabis supplies? Hawthorne. They own Hawthorne, or they did. I don't know if they've sold it since, but they owned Hawthorne for a long time and are controlling, your lights in the cannabis industry. So
let's talk about that after. Hey, Corey. That's gonna be a whole other can of worms.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Stick around after the show for more on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I did want to ask you too about the I feel like you said something about the Colorado Open Records Act and
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll show that with y'all.
yeah, cool. And I think maybe you said they had erased some records.
Oh yeah. Let me. So I think it's this one. Westward back in the day, they're not. Is this?
Here, hold up. I'll put that right up there. Bang.
No, that's not the right one.
Hootie and the Blowfish.
There you go.
Dave Matthews Band.
That's what we should talk about. Why are they still touring? Oh, but it was funny up in Boulder, the Dave Matthews Band riots. So up in Boulder one time, Dave Matthews played on I don't know what day at the field, and you weren't supposed to go past midnight at a certain decibel level. So they went past midnight at a certain decibel level. Is that the one? And they came and shut it down.
Shut down Dave Matthews.
They shut down the Dave Matthews Band, and then the people started rioting. So you can look that up. It's historical fact. Okay, so audit serious flaws. That's the one. So
yeah, you did mention an audit too.
Yeah, so
missing
prior
money
to this. So here's the audit serious flaws, and this before this happened, I made an open records request act to Dan Hartman, who's the head of at that time, the Medical Marijuana Criminal Enforcement Division, which is now the Marijuana Criminal Enforcement Division. Knowing they're setting up these rules and regulations, I said, I want all emails from Dan Hartman, pretty much. They violated the Cora Act. Then I went in, they gave me a bunch of emails, but they weren't from him. They were just like press releases. And then they said they didn't have the technology to maintain his emails. So all his emails were gone between the couple months prior to this audit being, in this time when $5 million went missing in the state audit. That's when all I was asking for his emails. And they're gone. We all know what happened to them, but they failed the audit last year. For instance, and this is what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure that's MMJ Freeway, and I got to find it. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure Hartman was either with these guys or, a member of one of them. So then they said, it's all about tracking, potentially disqualifying information. But yeah, they lost $25 million, and then he quit. And so he set up this whole thing, quit, got moved back to horse racing, I think. And you can see, is it questionable, including purchases, BlackBerry phones, fleet of vehicles. And they're saying, oh, they bought a bunch of big ass vehicles because they thought they're going to be doing a bunch of busts and moving things out. Whatever. It's only $2.3 million there.
Just a low 2.3 mil.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we got cops, or not cops, but other people like Michael Elliott, executive director of MMIG, which is now MIG, said the state's regulations work, but you know what they need? More money from us.
More money.
Yeah.
That's what will help.
Yeah. throw more money at a deeply flawed system. I'm sure that's going to work out fine. So yeah, and that's, right around the time, just for history, that would be something, we should know, and we'd want to know how these regulations got set up. Who was talking to the guy setting up the regulations that basically were copied, because we know the pigs aren't, smart people, and they just like copying each other and doing whatever the other pigs do all around the United States. So, that, and then I can,
let me ask you this, man, because I see the first name on the top line of this, um, a complaint that you filed here is Brian Vicente. And I feel like, they've done a lot of the policy pushing around the country. I know that they were hired to advise our cannabis control board here in Vermont. It seems like they're driving a lot of this policy.
Yeah, no, I mean, they set it up. They're working for who they're working for to get these policies in, and they're they made a very, very, very good job for themselves. And they're lawyers. They're, like I said the first time we talked, they're a bunch of sols, and they're in it for themselves. They're in it not for the cannabis. They're in it to make their people money and to make sure that they have a spot at the table, not to make sure that cannabis is no longer something people have to worry about being thrown in jail or having their property or liberty taken. So, and same thing now with the, what is it, 12 years since we got it. Now they're actually doing, and I was dumb enough to pay the $800 here in Colorado to get a social equity license, which is another scam they're running, saying, hey, now that we've got this industry on lock, you can come and make what little money you can if you can compete with, these people. And it's, it's a cool kids club, and none of the cool kids, I think, I'm going to say, they're not in it for cannabis. They're in it for something green, but not cannabis.
Corey, can we stop and talk about that social equity in a little more detail? Because that's something I've certainly have paid a good amount of attention to. I feel like maybe I felt the same way that you were just saying right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's in Colorado. They said we'll do this, and it was basically, the first talk I went to was Vicente, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's great. It's gonna help you. It's gonna help all these people." And I'm like, "Okay." And then we get down to it, like, no one. It's just the fees are too high. There's nothing that they're doing on the fees. All the equipment you still need to use. It's just another way to bleed money out of people. Like, everybody who applied for it, I don't know, and that'd be something interesting to investigate. How many people actually have social equity, and how many people are actually using their social equity? Because it's just people, these people who are in the industry who've already cemented their place, are gonna put down the ladder a little bit for select people that they want, that they can kind of control, that they can make it look good. Like it said, like the Amendment 64 said, reasonably prudent business person. It's not specifically saying it, but it's saying we don't want poor people, and we don't want, minorities. We want reasonably prudent business persons who are this, that, and the other, and they have never done it. So back then they're saying that, but now they're saying, oh, well, now we want to help people who have been most affected by it. Where were you when we were saying that at the beginning?
And the ladder analogy is something that I've used a lot myself. I usually go with the pulling the ladder up behind them analogy, but allowing certain people to climb up the ladder is also maybe a better way to put that.
Yeah. No, as long as you toe the line for them, they'll make you, you'll be part of the cool kids club. But it's not. It's their, all I wanted. And one of the things when I wrote my initiative, and I'll stop.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it. Was like, it's that. Open brief. Very Donahue. Crazy. All right.
Yeah. I'm here with Corey Donahue, guys. Great conversation here, Corey. Thanks.
Uh,
I appreciate you being flexible too. I know I've
oh,
fucked up the scheduling there a little bit. Yeah.
no worries. Cannabis initiative. No, no, no. Oh, here's a great legalization debate, round one. Legalized 2022 vendors. Yeah, so this was share this screen. This is kind of cool. Oh, present. Share screen. No. So this was the debate I was saying that we were gonna smoke cannabis at. It was moderated by Patricia Calhoun. So you had legalized 2012. I don't really remember that one, but it was fine. That was a fine one that could have went through. Paul Danish's amendment. He was a Boulder County Commissioner. That was pretty good. It was just a basically get every rule, everything off the book. Don't have any cannabis laws. Oh, Reverend Baker. There we go. He was the one that gave me the joint. Him and I smoked it. He had kind of the homebrew model. Mason Turvert. He was MPP, Drug Policy Alliance, sensible and safer. And I don't think that. And then Kathleen Chipeye, she had one. Inalienable right. So that was a pretty good, it was basic. It was like it's an inalienable right. The government has no ability to take it away from you or do anything. Mine, let me see if I can find the actual this now. Mine was just a very counterpoint to Turvert's one, just because it was like I said, if the cops, here we go, draft initiative. There's a debate. Governor, yeah. Yeah, it's going to make April 20th the state holiday. Yeah, measure adds that the Colorado Drug Enforcement Agency and Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division's budgets will be applied to 50% to the reparations paid for the wrongs done to nonviolent cannabis vendors retroactively for 10 years and be applied to reparations divisions equally between current offenders. 50% will be paid directly from the reduction in prison costs or profits in the case of private prisons. Then, the government spends $6,600. It's probably gone up per year per student, but $32,000 per prisoner. So they have the money for it. So it was basically just the opposite. Like, you created a war on us. You have this money. We know you have this money. You're going to pay us now because,
And didn't we talk about this on the phone, Corey, about private prisons?
Yeah, I mean, it's Boulder, Colorado is the home of BI Incorporated. BI Incorporated is a wholly owned subsidiary of...
Here, let's go. I'm going to take that down. I'm going to put you back up.
Okay. Oh, yeah, please. Sorry. BI Incorporated is a wholly owned... Is it Civicor? Wait. Let me see. BI.
Yeah, pull that back up. We could do...
Is it Common Core? No, BI Incorporated, Geo Group. So BI Incorporated is here in Colorado. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of Geo Group. Geo Group is a private prison corporation that is running the immigration concentration camps on the border. BI Incorporated also is your ankle monitors for most government agencies that are. So it's a jailer. They're here in Boulder, Colorado. So they're one of my... if you're going to have enemies and things you don't like, that's one of them for me here. And just kind of the background of Boulder. Everyone thinks this place is so great until they look at like, hey, wait a second. So you're getting a bunch of cannabis or a bunch of money from private prisons and from military contractors? Always on the wrong side. I'm going bald, but I'm going to be like Homer. Even if I have three hairs left, doing the comb over. Works for him. But yeah, it's like that. And then we have not BI Incorporated, BAE Systems just bought out Ball Aerospace, another military industrial complex company that's bombing people all over the world with our money. It's here in Boulder.
That's
So,
nice.
like I said, it's human rights, and that's really my passion, my background. And cannabis is just what I like to do because it's a beautiful plant, and I want that to be. I see that as something, if it's ever truly given to the people, that would help us, because just the smoking of it's cool. Why isn't everything made of plastic, hemp plastic? Why isn't everything made of hemp? We won World War II with hemp. Like, it's a industrious fiber, and that's really, back in the day when this was all being criminalized by Anslinger and DuPont, it wasn't because people are smoking it. I mean, that's an easy way to do it. Look, that guy's a druggie, whatever. It was because that affects all their polyester, all their paper, paper mills, money they own. Like, that's the real thing that's they're keeping from the people. All the medicine, yeah, it's 100% helpful, but we could have a completely different world. We went plastic waste, all this could be done by hemp, and we could have, instead of corn in the Midwest, we could have hemp, better soil, all that. But yeah, private prisons too.
Yeah, well, and like you said, with corn in the Midwest, and also you hinted at the Hawthorne involvement earlier, and somehow I feel like some of those same big corporations will try to assert their dominance on the cannabis game like they have in the corn industry.
Yeah. I mean, they could. People also could just grow it, and I think they're getting, they have crop insurance now. It's just, I'm not sure hemp farmers still have those subsidies that these corn people are having, because they obviously don't have that money, like you're saying. So it's getting there, I guess, but again, it's too slow for me.
All right, Corey, I'm gonna leave it right here. Hang on, I'm gonna pull myself back up.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Donahue. Before we get out of here, and please stick around after my outro video for a minute. If we missed anything that you think is super important, or if you have any shameless plugs or shout outs that you want to give, now's the time. Thank you again for being here. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, shameless plug, do jujitsu. I like doing it. This is a place in Florida I went to. Yeah, just grow your own, grow as much as you can. It's a plant. We should be able to plant. I know not everybody can, but try, and try to do what's right and help people out.
Corey Donahue, I'm your host, Caleb Teskey. Remember, the devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print. Peace.